It's the Brad and John Show.
And today is Tuesday, January 21st. This is the B block, which means we start this about 7:20. We're a little bit late this morning, but we're at 7:24 right now. But we do this because of the fact that if you're listening in the future on our podcast or our YouTube channel, bjshow.video, you know the reference as to what we're talking about as far as date-wise. Okay, yesterday was the inauguration, John. What was your favorite part of it?
I think my favorite part was just listening to the inauguration speech and hearing him. I think the punchline of it's Liberation Day. I think that was my favorite.
You know, what's interesting about this is there's still people that say the reason they had it inside wasn't because the cold, was the security. What do you think about that? Do you think that was the real reason?
Yeah, I think it probably had to do with security and nothing to do with the weather.
Yeah, I agree as well, too. I think it was, was an excuse to essentially say, hey, we're just going to do this inside because of the fact it's too cold outside. But, the interesting thing is already pushback. If you've seen Nancy Pelosi already has a very poignant tweet this morning about Trump pardoning all the J3, the J6
Oh, I
protesters.
didn't see that. What? I mean, I'm sure she's opposed to it, but what does she have to say?
Well, essentially, she's saying that, and I have to agree with her in one respect. As I understand it, he blanket pardoned all of them who were prosecuted by the Department of Justice, including some of them who were guilty of assaulting police officers. Okay? I think those people should probably stay in the Gray Bar Hotel for a little bit longer. The people that, and remember, there was video of some people that walked into the building and the police officers opened the doors for them. Remember that? There's videos.
Absolutely,
of people
yeah, of course there were. And I don't mean to preempt this, Brad, but how many were there? 20? At least 26 were identified as federal informants that were there that day.
Well, that's the other thing. And remember, the FBI came out and said, well, there were 26 informants there that day, but we only had 6 that were on duty. And you're going like, no, hold on a minute. Now let's
So the rest were volunteering.
Right. They're working their day off. Hey, let's go. We're federal informants. Let's go. And the crazy thing about that is when you watch these crime shows, and, like you see this, the guy's he's a plant from the FBI. You're going like, that doesn't happen in real life. Here's the FBI coming out and saying, yeah, we had 26 informants there. Okay.
Yeah, incredible.
Right. What does that tell you? It's like, wow, this really does happen. They do.
And I think what you said, though, too, Brad, I think it's fair to say that if you're Biden or if you're Trump, blanket pardons are generally a bad idea. And I think a reasonable person will look at some of the folks who assaulted police officers and be like, whoa, that's not okay.
You just don't do that under any circumstances. And
yes, exactly, Brad.
And especially me coming from the fact that, I worked my way through college as a police dispatcher. I see the opposite side of that equation. I know there are people who, cops are all bad. I got to know these guys personally. I got to know, I met some of them. I met their wives and girlfriends and wives and girlfriends or girlfriends, I should say. There's some of their kids and things like that. You get to know these real people.
Yeah.
And you get to know what ticks, and it's like anything. The force I worked on, I think we had 50 officers or something like that, and 45 of them I trust my life with them. 3 of them I wouldn't trust my car with. 2 of them I wouldn't trust my underwear with them because of the fact that, they were just like, it's like anything. You go into any organization, like when you worked at Monsanto, everybody knew who the good people were and everybody who knew the slackers were, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, let me step on that anecdote, Brad, and say that when we talk about the Missouri legislature, there's 163 state reps in theory at any given time, not counting vacancies. But just think, roughly 10 of them are going to be complete jerks and antisocial nightmares and psychopaths. And then the other ones are somewhere on the spectrum of being great people.
Right. And it's it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Missouri legislature. Let's go back to the Trump thing for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
All the things he said yesterday, I'm thinking to myself, a lot of them were just common sense things. Is my mind warped when I hear him say these? We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm thinking to myself, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Very little to disagree with, especially when he was talking about. Now, I didn't hear the whole thing because I was in and out of the car, kind of like you, Brad. I know you're running errands yesterday, but I was in and out of the car. But when he's talking about drill, baby, drill, and basic stuff like we need to become an energy powerhouse. We need to get ourselves to the point where we're exporting energy again, and and whatever he said of the most precious resource is right under our feet, the liquid gold. And you can disagree with some of the policy stuff. So if you're a green energy person, you don't like his comments about the electric vehicle mandate. But in general, how do you disagree with most of what he said?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, so much of it was common sense. It was, and then when he said there's two sexes, I'm thinking to myself, whoa, the people at NPR. How'd you listen to the speech? Did you listen to it on?
I listened to it on. I think 97.1 ran it live.
If the people at NPR had to be considering suicide if they're broadcasting that.
I mean, really. But the flip side of that, Brad, is they're already in their head. You knew when they were listening to that, they're thinking of, ooh, and then we're gonna get somebody that's a non-binary on tomorrow, and they're gonna talk about how it's wrong.
Well, you're going to talk about how already they're being discriminated against and stuff like that. And see, I think this is my own opinion. I think I know one gay guy I know who's told me this story, and he said he was okay with LGB, lesbians, gays, and bi, right? And when they started tacking off all the letters, and then they put the plus on it, and then some people start LGB with 2S, you know what I mean, the two-spirit thing. And he said it just destroyed our movement. And I thought to myself, I never really thought of it that way, because he said it got so weird that, and I think this is the interesting part of it, is that it's true in anything. You have people that, it's like, I'll give you an example. My father was a craftsman in the true sense of the word, okay? He didn't own a lot of power tools. He owned hand tools, okay? He owned a plane. He owned an old, what they call a brace, which is a thing that you screw, through holes through wood, which is you spin around with your hand, and it's got a, pad on the end. Me, I own lots of power tools because I want to get in there, get the job done in a hurry, okay? But there's a difference in how you look at things, and there's a difference in how you do things, but the bottom line is you want to try to have the same result. And the point I'm trying to make on this is that the whole thing if you have all these different derivations of LGBTQIA plus, it gets to the point where it gets to okay, what else can we have now? It's to the point where every once in a while, for example, when I hear someone say they're queer, okay, back in my day, that meant they were gay, right? I mean,
you're exactly right.
Isn't that sort of the same thing in your generation as well, too? If you
Absolutely, Brad. Queer men gay.
Right. Okay. Now, explain to me what queer means.
I believe it means gender non-conforming.
So is that an all-encompassing term?
Yeah, I think it means that gosh, how do I even say this? I think it means that you want whatever you want at that moment.
Okay, I give you this. This is Maslow's theory of hierarchy thing. Okay, I give it to you again. Let's say there's an elevator in the Metropolitan Square building downtown, and it's on one of the top floors, something like the 40th floor, and it's packed with people in their elevator, and there's a couple of women in there, and there's a couple of dudes, and there's some black guys, and there's some Jewish guys, and some Asian guys, and some some Bosnian people, and there's 2 or 3, LGBTQI people. Okay, they're all have their own identity until the elevator malfunctions and it drops 3 floors and then it stops. And guess what? They all become people who are in a bad situation. Get what I'm saying, John?
Absolutely. I get exactly what you're saying. And but here's the thing. Like you said, and we've talked about this before, Brad, if you live in Tower Grove South and you spend, and the most exciting and interesting part of your day is going to the Progressive Coffee Shop and talking about intersectionality, you don't worry about an elevator dropping very often or your roads being cleared because you're talking about intersectionality and generational trauma, So you make this point very well, Brad, which is when the number one pressure in your life is discussing with your friends your generational trauma because your Aunt Edna, left you unaccompanied for 2 hours, then you're not stuck in an elevator. You're not escaping a jaguar on the savannah.
Right, right. It's the when people come together, when they have a common thing that confronts them. I mean, go back to World War II. I mean, even to the point where they had segregated units. They had the black, the guys was with the Tuskegee Airmen and things like that. But yet they still were fighting for a common goal. You know what I mean? They were fighting for, and
Yes.
some would say they fought better than the white dudes. I mean, the Tuskegee Airmen were noted as being an incredibly talented group of pilots and fighter pilots and things like that. But I don't know. It just bothers me that what Trump was saying to me, maybe that's because my mind is warped. What he was saying yesterday was so baseline. This is what we got to get back to. This is what our country has to do. This is what we have to do. We have to be the biggest and the best. Matter of fact, there's a story that I read this morning, and I don't think it got hardly any attention whatsoever. The commandant, the head person that runs the Coast Guard, was stripped of her job. Do you know about this story?
No, I hadn't seen this.
Here, let me go get this real quick. And to the point where, here, let me.
Because of Trump, or who did it?
Well, here, I'll read you the beginning of the story. And what's interesting about this is the Coast Guard is sort of interesting. I know more about the Coast Guard than I should because my old girlfriend from high school was a Coastie, as they call it. She became a Coast Guard person. And the Coast Guard goes back and forth between Department of Transportation and DOD, Department of Defense. If we're in a war, the Coast Guard is governed by the Department of Defense. If we're in a non-war situation, it's governed by Department of Transportation. Her name still is. The Commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard has been terminated over concerns about the border recruitment, and an erosion of trust, a senior DHS official confirmed to Fox News. Admiral Linda Lee Fagan, 61, has been terminated by the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Benjamin Huffman, the official said. Hagan has demonstrated leadership deficiencies, operational failures, and an inability to advance the strategic objectives of the Coast Guard. These include the failure to address border security threats, insufficient leadership in recruitment and retention, mismanagement in acquiring key acquisitions, including icebreakers and helicopters, excessive focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and an erosion of trust over the mishandling and cover-up of Operation Fouled Anchor. Do you know what Operation Fouled Anchor was?
No, what is that one?
That is the Coast Guard's internal investigation into sexual assault cases at the Coast Guard Academy. And the thing they talked about her was she was so consumed with the DEI stuff that she let everything else go. And once again, I come back to the point, you have Ohio State. And you're not a football guy, but Ohio State won last night in the college.
I watched the game, yeah.
Okay, you watched the game. Okay. Do you think that the coach of Ohio State came out afterwards and said, you know what? We won because we've got a diverse group of people. We practice diversity, equality and inclusion, and we have short little guys who are only 2 feet tall, who are
absolutely
right,
not. I think he had the best team out there
right.
on the field last
He
night.
had
And they won him a rout.
best team. He had the best guys out there in the field, the best, the creme de la creme, shall we say. And he was, let's say, he's also the best coach. And by the way, he beat a coach who was black for Notre Dame, and everybody kept talking to the Notre Dame class, because that was the first time a black coach had ever played, had managed.
I know,
a team.
for the national day. And on top of that, it was MLK Day. What does MLK Day mean to you, being a coach?
And he got so tired of those questions. That guy should run for office, because every time he got asked,
he said, look, I don't want what we're doing here to undermine the fact that it's MLK Day. Let's not make this about me,
Right. And he kept saying, it's a team. I'm part of the team. We have a good group of people. He kept sort of diverting from the fact that, hey, he's a black guy and they're playing on MLK Day. Man, this has just gotten out of control. We're all, once again, if we're stuck in that elevator, the elevator drops 4 floors and it comes to a halt, and you hear creaking noises like, oh my God, the cable's gonna break. And there's a dozen of us in there, we're all human beings worried about if we're going to live another day, right? Isn't that what really it comes
I,
down to?
I think so. And I think that, excuse me, when you look forward to 2027, when you get appointed by Mike Elam,
Yeah, right.
I think about the fact that you're not going to talk about, oh, I'm the first Mocha Java, trisexual to be appointed by county government. You're not going to make it about you, Brad, because you realize that it's about the team. It's about County Executive Mike Elam. It's not about your Mocha Java status.
You missed that I'm trinary.
Yeah, and you're trinary too. And you had the rough moments when you started the studio fire, and I mean you didn't have a particularly clean bill of public safety, but you overcame it, right, Brad?
Right, John.
You caught frostbite in your studio back in January 2025. Remember that?
I caught it yesterday. That's why it took me a long time to get the stuff on the web yesterday. Okay, which is probably going to be the same thing today. The equipment won't work. One of our studios does not have any climate control, believe it or not. And whatever the outside temperature is, that's what the inside temperature is. But that's a whole nother story. Okay, we have to take a break.